Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Horn, and I'm the Digital Content Co-Lead at All4Birth. And I'm here with Elaina Bright Mullings, a mother and eco-friendly parent as well. So this is just kicking off our series on eco-friendly parenting, and I'm here talking with Elaina. So Elaina, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I have been a parent now for a year and a half. I have a 1.5-year-old son named Alakai. I am currently pregnant with our second, who is due in May.
Yay.
So a few more months before our second arrives. I'm also a middle school science teacher as well.
Amazing.
Mhm.
So at All4Birth, we're really passionate about eco-friendly choices that we all can make, small things, big things in our lives that can help just make things better for the planet. And we had a conversation earlier, Elaina, about breastfeeding being a way to do eco-friendly parenting. There's no bottles, there's no water, there's no, the only resource that you're using is your body and, your time. And that doesn't cost the environment anything. And just a warning for the people listening in, we are parents. It's a Saturday afternoon where I am in London, Saturday morning where Elaina is in the US, and kids are around. You might hear my daughter in the back singing in canto. Um, I don't know, the same for you, Elaina?
Is running around with a comb right now. So
Yeah.
yes, you will hear him, I'm sure, soon.
Yeah. I also have a 3-month-old baby, so you might hear some
Mm,
crying. There might be some breastfeeding happening. So we're just gonna let it all happen.
absolutely.
So yeah, can you you told us that that your family is growing. You've got a little baby on the way, and you've got a 1.5-year-old son. Congratulations.
Thank
Um,
you.
and yeah, just tell us a bit about your breastfeeding journey and how you came to make that decision.
Well, my family had always breastfed. So my mom had breastfed, her mother had breastfed, and her mother before that had breastfed as far back as we could remember. So it was one of those things that was just kind of like the unspoken truth. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to breastfeed. Um, and I had thought a little bit about using formula or using bottle feeding actually. So pumping to then put into a bottle so that someone else could feed my child, especially if I wanted to be out or do something different. But then once he arrived, I realized when you pop them on, it's just easier.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about washing bottles or nipples or sterilizing things. As long as I kept myself hydrated and fed, I had a good milk supply. Um, there were a few times that I noticed that when I was stressed or angry or feeling like an extreme emotion, that my milk supply was a little bit affected. So it also helped me regulate myself just emotionally too.
Mm.
But it was probably one of the best decisions I made. Um, and I'm happy that I made it. And I will continue with this second pregnancy and birth as well with breastfeeding.
That's amazing. Just listening to you talk, it just one moment. All right, we're back. Motherhood called, had to refill water bottles and get snacks and that sort of thing. So we're back. And Elaina, there was something that you mentioned in the first segment about just being in tune with your body to help with breastfeeding. So if you're stressed, you notice a change in your milk supply, so that helps you to kind of regulate your needs and your body and your health. And that made me think about, as parents, when we sometimes make eco-friendly choices, um, we think about the environment and saving
Yeah,
protecting the environment, but also just by protecting the environment, we're also protecting and preserving ourselves. So through
absolutely.
breastfeeding, you're doing lots of different things. And I was just mentioning to you earlier about, for me, when I'm breastfeeding, it makes me just sit down, and it helps to regulate your stress, because you want to do all of these different things. You know, you've got laundry, you've got, you know, the dishes in the sink, but
Yeah.
you know, your boobs are getting full and you're like, okay, I need to just sit down
Hmm.
and feed the baby, and you just kind of relax and
Yeah.
just kind of de-stress. And also like with your water intake, you kind of think, okay, this is making me really thirsty. I need to drink more
Hmm.
water. So yeah, absolutely. Do you think for you was your decision to breastfeed, you mentioned it being kind of like a truth in your family, that that's just what women before you had done and that's what you expected to do. Um, was there any part of it that was something for the environment, that was an eco-friendly choice, or kind of one with nature kind of decision?
Absolutely. I mean, with my son was born right in the midst of COVID.
Mhm.
So with everything that was going on with immune systems worldwide, people just getting sick and depleting their immune systems, nature gave us this milk, and it's given us everything that our children need inside of it. So it really helped boost his immune system, and knock on wood, he's not gotten sick since he's been born. Like, thank goodness, from anything, not a cold, not a flu, not an ear infection, even. So I've been really grateful in the fact that nature has provided me with the medicine to give him, to keep him healthy, and to help prolong his toddler years, and he can run around and play in dirt and do whatever he wants to. We're out in public often, and he's too young to wear masks, so he still has, access to germs that help build his immunity as well. So it was definitely partially because of the fact that nature has provided me something that is cherishable, like something that is worth it, liquid gold, in other words. And I feel really fortunate in the ability to be able to breastfeed, because I know that not all women have that ability to do so.
Mhm.
So it was partly that. It was also partly economical, not having to purchase formula, not having to worry about allergies from the different formulas. If my son can process this versus processing that. Oh,
Mhm.
did it knock me off? There we go. Yeah, so processing this versus processing that. And it saved money, it saved bottles, it saved all of those things. So all of those things I didn't have to worry about any longer. So it was partially that point as well. So
Mm. Yeah,
mhm.
that sounds, you touched on so many interesting things, and kind of going back to the pandemic, um, it in the height of it, at least in it, because I don't know, well, just so the audience is aware that you're based in the US.
Yes,
Uh, you're in Virginia, DC area?
correct.
Yeah. And so, but here in London where I am, I remember in the height of the pandemic, you couldn't find baby formula. And there were people, you know, who were pregnant during the pandemic, who, or just had babies during the pandemic, who were desperate trying to relactate because of the resources just weren't there. And people, unfortunately, just kind of when they were in the panic of stocking up on things, they took, you know, formula and diapers, and that's something
And
else,
wipes.
and why everything. Because I think at that stage, my daughter was just starting to potty train. It was because of the pandemic that we were like, okay, let's just cold turkey, stop with the nappies, because they were so hard to find at
Mm-hmm.
that point. And so it just kind of brings you back to the idea that sometimes when you make these um, eco-friendly, I mean, lots people make different decisions based on their circumstances and what
Mm-hmm.
works for them. And this is not a judgment on that at all, but it's just interesting that when crises happen, that you find
Yeah.
that these more eco-friendly choices um, are something that, you know, you just have. I imagine if you're cloth diapering, you don't have to, you know, you've already got your stash.
Yeah.
If you're breastfeeding, you don't have to worry about things outside of yourself
Yeah.
um, to you know, kind of keep your family going.
Absolutely. And that led to me starting to breastfeed, and that just being a natural cost saving venture. It led me to other cost saving things like cloth diapering,
Mhm.
like purchasing cloth wipes. partially because wipes were so hard to find and they were so expensive during the peak of the pandemic. I mean, people were running out of toilet paper, so they, resorted to wipes and
Oh,
including baby
wow. I
wipes.
didn't even make that connection.
Yes, yeah, people
Yeah.
were running out of toilet paper. There was a shortage of it, so they started pulling all the wipes off of the shelf as well.
Mhm.
And so that was difficult, but luckily we got some washcloths in the meantime, ordered some cloth wipes, and started doing that as well as cloth diapering. And
Mhm.
that was really, it has saved us. It's saved us, I'm sure, thousands of dollars over the last year and a half since my son's been born on just cloth diapering. And even with my new child arriving, we're going to cloth diaper again. And so we don't have to go out and purchase more diapers or anything like that. We just use the stash we have.
Mhm.
Takes a little bit more water, takes a little bit more time, but it has really been cost effective for us. So very similar to breastfeeding, opening up that door of knowing that, okay, I want to do this naturally. I want to give my son the best possible option that I can that's available to me. I'm also going to do these other things too. So, and again, knock on wood, he's only had one diaper rash his entire his
Okay.
entire life. Yeah, and that was because I had him in disposables for like a week
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
got tired of washing laundry. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It's interesting because I think sometimes things like, I breastfed my daughter, who's now, she'll be 5 in April. I breastfed her for over 3 years, and now I have my son who's 3, almost 4 months old now, and we're breastfeeding. And I never really thought of it as eco-friendly. I kind of focused initially on, in my first pregnancy, it was a focus on, okay, the health benefits for the baby. And then you kind
yeah,
of get into it and you get over those initial hurdles of, learning to breastfeed. And then I kind of realized like, oh, it's, we can travel easily. We don't have to worry about,
yes,
there's so much baby kit anyway when you need to go anywhere, that like not having to worry
absolutely.
about bottles, not having to worry about the use of water or
Hmm. The temperature that the bottles are and
yeah, all of that stuff,
all of
like
that.
that kind of stuff, it does my head, and I cannot
Yeah.
imagine having to do that and doing that at night as well.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
and so I realized, okay, it's a little bit more than like what's on the label, like it's more than nutrition. Um,
Hmm.
and then by the time my daughter was about 2.5, with the nappies, I was like, I remember changing her and there was like a pile of dirty nappies and when I say nappies for the American audience, I mean, diapers. So there's a lot of, yeah. So there was like a pile of nappies on the floor and I was like, I wonder how many of those are in a landfill right now. Like,
Hmm.
and how many that she's been using, since the day she was born, and she didn't potty train until she was maybe 3,
Hmm.
or over 3. So like that's like over 3 years of using nappies. And I was like, okay, if I ever do this again, I'm gonna do cloth diapering. And then I
Yeah.
started to think of other ways that, that things contribute to eco-friendly parenting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know that not everyone is in the financial position or societal position, or might even have pressures from outside family members in the environment. And, it's easier for them to do bottle feeding. It's easier for them to do formula. Some people don't have the privilege because during the pandemic, when I had my son, I was home with him 24/7 because of the lockdown. So I didn't have to worry about going back to work and pumping while I was at work or having to feed my son a bottle or sending my son to daycare even
Mhm.
with, enough food to sustain him for, a full day.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate for that. And now that we've transitioned out of the whole, I guess we're going to call it lockdown. I'm not going to call it, it's
Yeah.
still pandemic. So we're
Yeah.
still in it. But since we've transitioned to be more outside, it just seems like it's anyone's game at this point. Now that things are opening back up, bottle feeding, formula feeding might become more popular. For me personally, it is a very purposeful act that I'm going to breastfeed my child, both because of the health benefits, but then also because it saves me some coins in my pocket.
Mhm.
And it's just better, in my opinion, for nature. You're less waste, less use of other things.
Mhm.
I didn't introduce any type of milk, and we actually use oat milk. He uses vegan milk until after the age of 1, because he was exclusively breastfed. And then we started introducing foods and things like that, and he's still, thank the Lord, still just as healthy as he was since he's been born. So
Mhm.
yeah, starting that foundation for me is as much as preserving his nature as it is preserving the nature outside.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. I love that, preserving the nature within us
Yeah,
is around us, because I think sometimes as humans, we kind of see ourselves separate from nature and separate and superior.
yeah,
But I think the pandemic and the virus really snapped that, really made for me realize how vulnerable we are as humans, how reliable we are on, how much we rely on natural resources, and how nature
absolutely.
can just like, slap you back and be like, wait a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah,
um
100%.
so no, I definitely agree that there's nature within us and around us, and breastfeeding is one way to protect and preserve and pass that on.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of hopes that you have in terms of eco-friendly parenting? I know you're expecting your next child, but like in terms of your eldest son, anything kind
Mm-hmm.
of going forward that you'll think about in terms of eco-friendly choices, or any reflections you have, or what kind of world do you wish, for Alakai, in terms of eco-friendly?
Of course.
Yeah.
I got tons of opinions. I'm a mom, right? We've got tons of opinions. I want obviously the best for him. And so like you said, breastfeeding, especially early on, allows you to sit down, like, and relax and connect. And I found a beauty in that. And so I'm also teaching my son how it's important sometimes to just sit down and reflect, even at a year and a half. Like, let's just have a little bit of quiet time. Let's just sit here with ourselves. Let's breathe. And that reflection. So part of that is also, I think, going to definitely benefit him in the future. We're also looking at different styles and methods of teaching for him in the future. So, do we want him to just go to a normal kindergarten? Do we want him to start sooner? Do we want him to do pre-K? Do we want him to do more like naturalist stuff in outside school? And we want to do Montessori, like all of those principles. So they may not necessarily be considered eco-friendly, but they're definitely, it drives eco-friendly, I think, consciousness when
Yeah.
you're involved in things like that. So researching parenting groups and finding out what people are doing in terms of baby-led weaning and not purchasing baby food in small jars, because they're going to go into the waste eventually. They're going to end up in a landfill eventually, and just feeding your child essentially what you have at your meals, which reduces the amount of waste because you're not cooking a whole separate meal for it.
Yeah.
I remember on my registry, before I had my son, on my baby registry, I had a like a little baby NutriBullet
Yeah.
where you're supposed to use it to blend up baby food, and it had little tiny containers that you put the little baby food in after. And I ended up gifting it to my sister when she had her son, because I was like, I'm not going to use this. We're going to do baby led weaning. And it's been successful for us as a family. He eats very, very well. He enjoys food. Like, he
Mhm.
is a little bit of a foodie. Like, he will turn some stuff away. Options have definitely those options have definitely stirred up a fire in him to hopefully be a lot more conscious in the future too.
Well, thank you so much. That really summarizes everything. And it, you just given me so many ideas about how even we can, breastfeeding is one step, but even your choices in baby and weaning your baby away from, breast milk you can also make eco-friendly choices in terms of,
Absolutely.
using less kind of processed foods. It's also good for your health, but then also means that you're having less packages and plastic. And you want to say hello? Hello. This is a breastfed baby. Yeah, so thank you. That's so much food for thought. No pun intended. Well, thank you so much, Elaina. I'm
Absolutely.
gonna yeah, wrap up the recording. But yeah, it was so insightful to hear your story, and thank you so much, and all the best
Thank
to
you.
your new arrival.
Thank you so much. And congratulations again to you, newest mommy in the newborn phase.
Yes. Thank you. All right, bye.
All right.